The text came in late at night, the kind that makes your stomach tighten before your mind can catch up. We need to talk tomorrow. Urgent. Don't tell my son. I stared at my phone in the dark, the screen lighting up the ceiling in a dull glow. My husband was asleep beside me, his breathing slow, steady, unaware that something had just shifted in the background of our lives. Any message that starts with "don't tell your spouse" is already a problem. That's not paranoia. That's common sense. I didn't respond right away. I told myself there had to be a reasonable explanation. Maybe my mother-in-law was dealing with something personal. Maybe she was sick. Maybe she needed help with something sensitive and didn't want to worry her son unnecessarily. Still, the wording sat wrong in my chest. In the morning, I agreed to meet her for coffee. She arrived exactly on time, carrying a leather folder under her arm like she was walking into a negotiation. She didn't order anything. Didn't ask how we were doing. Didn't bother with small talk. She sat down, placed the folder on the table between us, and said flatly, "I need $15,000. I blinked. Once, twice. "For what?" I asked. "My procedure," she replied without hesitation. "I'm getting work done. Face, neck, maybe some lipo. I deserve to feel beautiful." The way she said it, calm, assured, entitled, made my skin prickle. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because my brain rejected the idea outright. Surely she was joking. Surely this was some bizarre misunderstanding. She wasn't. "My son tells me what you make," she continued. "You can afford it." That was when her expression changed. When I told her no, clearly, calmly, her eyes hardened, her voice dropped. "If you don't help me," she said, leaning forward slightly, "I'll make sure my son sees who you really are." The cafe noise faded into the background as she explained in careful detail exactly how she would do it, how she would frame me as selfish, controlling, disrespectful to family, how she knew which doubts to plant, which insecurities to poke. "That's not a threat," she said quietly. "That's reality. I'm his mother. I know exactly what to say." My coffee sat untouched, cooling between my hands as I tried to process what was happening. "You have until the end of the week," she added, standing up. "Don't test me." She walked out without looking back. I stayed there far longer than I should have, staring at the empty chair across from me, genuinely confused about how a conversation over coffee had turned into blackmail. And the worst part? This wasn't even the fallout yet. Before that coffee meeting, before the threats and screenshots and family phone trees, my life with my husband had been, by most measures, quietly solid. Not dramatic, not perfect, but grounded. We met years ago in a way that never made for a great story. No lightning strike, no love at first sight nonsense. Just two people circling each other slowly, carefully, learning habits before promises. He was thoughtful in the ways that mattered. Paid attention. Remembered things I didn't realize I'd said out loud. When we decided to get married, it wasn't because we were swept up in romance. It was because life made more sense together than apart. His family came as part of the package. His father was calm, measured, the kind of man who stayed out of conflicts unless absolutely necessary, the kind who believed silence was often better than escalation. His sister was practical, guarded, someone who'd learned early how to navigate emotional minefields without stepping on them. And then there was his mother. From the outside, she was charming, social, the type who hugged a little too long and spoke a little too loudly. She loved to tell stories where she was always the misunderstood hero. If there was tension in a room, it somehow never originated with her, but it always ended there. Early on, I noticed the pattern. Small, guilt-laced comments. "You never call anymore." I guess I'm just not important. I did so much for my kids, and now look at me. Nothing overt enough to confront, just enough to keep everyone slightly off balance. My husband saw it. He wasn't blind, but he'd grown up inside that atmosphere where emotional pressure was normal, where peace came from giving in, just enough to keep things calm. He'd learned how to manage her moods the way some people manage weather, anticipating storms, adjusting plans, hoping it would pass. I didn't interfere, not at first. When we got engaged, she cried, loudly, publicly, told everyone how proud she was, how happy she was for her son. Then later, privately, she asked whether I really understood how close mothers and sons should be, framed as concern, delivered as warning. I let it go. When we got married, she had opinions about everything. The guest list, the seating, the timing, the flowers. Each complaint wrapped in the language of just wanting the best for you. When she didn't get her way, she sulked. When she did, she acted magnanimous. My husband handled it the way he always had, by smoothing things over. Over the years, the comments continued about money, about priorities, about how families should help each other. She had a habit of asking for favors that weren't quite favors, loans that were never repaid, emergencies that weren't really emergencies. Each request came with an unspoken expectation, compliance. And every time someone hesitated, she took it personally. I learned to keep boundaries politely invisible. I didn't argue, I didn't confront. I chose my moments carefully, believing, naively, that as long as I stayed reasonable, things wouldn't escalate. But entitlement doesn't shrink when it's tolerated. It grows. By the time that text arrived, "Don't tell my son," she had already decided something for us, decided what I owed her, decided what she was entitled to, decided what she would do if she didn't get it. I just didn't know yet how far she was willing to go. Looking back, the warning signs weren't subtle. They just didn't announce themselves as danger. They dressed themselves up as family expectations, the kind people excuse because confronting them feels worse than tolerating them. Money was always the undercurrent. Not openly, not in a way that could be challenged directly, but in comments that lingered. Observations delivered as jokes. Questions framed as curiosity. "How are you two doing financially?" she'd ask, her tone light, her eyes sharp. "Must be nice not having to worry," she'd add, smiling, as if she wasn't already counting. She knew exactly what she was doing. She never asked my husband directly. She asked around him, through his sister, through casual comments at family gatherings, through what she framed as maternal concern. Information gathered without consent, weaponized later. I didn't like it, but disliking something and acting on it are two different things. The first time I really felt it cross a line was over something small, a holiday. She wanted us to change plans last minute, cancel a trip we'd already booked because she'd decided to host something instead. When my husband hesitated, she didn't argue. She sighed, heavily. "I guess I'll just be alone," she said. I thought family mattered more than vacations. My husband caved. He always did. Afterward, I told him quietly that wasn't fair. He nodded. He agreed. But agreement didn't translate into action. Years of conditioning don't disappear because someone names them. Then there were the loans. A few hundred here, a few thousand there, always framed as temporary, always accompanied by a story. Something broken, something urgent, something no one else could help with. When repayment didn't happen, she'd joke about it. "Oh, don't worry, you'll get it back when I'm rich." No one laughed. Still, no one pushed back either. I watched how she responded to boundaries, not with anger, but with wounded silence. How she withdrew affection, withheld contact, punished people emotionally until they folded. It was effective. It had worked for decades. And slowly, without anyone explicitly agreeing to it, the unspoken rule became clear. Saying no to her had consequences. That was the seed, planted long before the coffee shop, long before the number 15,000 was spoken out loud. The text message hadn't come out of nowhere. It was simply the moment when her expectations finally collided with someone who wasn't willing to comply. And for the first time, I realized she didn't see me as family. She saw me as a resource. Still, even then, I didn't tell my husband. Not immediately. Part of me wanted to believe she was bluffing, that she'd test the boundary, get frustrated, and move on, that this was just another manipulation tactic that would burn itself out if ignored. So I waited. I waited to see if she'd follow through. That decision, to wait, would change everything. The text started that night. Not frantic, not angry, controlled, precise. "Have you thought about our discussion? Time is running out. Choose wisely." I didn't reply. I took screenshots instead. Every message, every word, my thumb steady even as my pulse wasn't. If she wanted to turn this into something ugly, I was going to make sure I had proof of exactly how it started. The deadline she'd set came and went. I ignored every message. The call came the next afternoon. "Well," she said, not bothering with a greeting. "No," I replied. "I'm not giving you $15,000. That's ridiculous." There was a pause, long enough to feel deliberate. Then she spoke again, her voice eerily calm. "You just made the biggest mistake of your marriage." "I guess we'll see," I said. "Do what you need to do," she answered, and hung up. That evening, my husband came home from work like nothing had happened. We made dinner. We talked about our days. We watched television side by side, our knees touching on the couch. Everything felt normal, almost too normal. I told myself maybe she'd back down. Maybe the threat had been empty. Maybe she'd realized she'd gone too far. The next morning proved me wrong. My husband's phone started ringing before we'd finished breakfast. He ignored the first few calls, annoyed, then finally put it on speaker while pouring coffee. Honey, his mother's voice came through, thick with concern. We need to talk about your wife. He froze. About her what? He asked. She's been acting strange lately, his mother continued. Secretive, distant. Have you noticed? I felt my chest tighten. Mom, he said slowly, what are you talking about? I can't say more, she replied. I just think you should pay attention. Watch how she handles money, how she treats family. I'm worried. Worried. The word landed exactly the way she intended. After the call ended, my husband turned to me, confusion written across his face. Okay, he said. What was that? I didn't hesitate. Your mom asked me for $15,000 for cosmetic surgery, I said evenly. I said no. She threatened to turn you against me if I refused. He stared at me, then laughed. A short, disbelieving sound. She did what? I unlocked my phone and slid it across the counter. Read it yourself. I watched his face as he scrolled. Confusion first, then disbelief, then anger, and finally something colder, something sharp. She threatened our marriage, he said quietly. Yes. His hands were shaking when he looked up. I'm calling her. You sure? I asked. Oh, I'm very sure. He hit call and put it on speaker. Honey, his mother answered brightly. I was hoping. Did you demand $15,000 from my wife? He cut in. And say you'd turn me against her if she didn't pay? Silence. Then, I don't know what she told you. Did you threaten her? He repeated. Another pause, longer this time. You're twisting things, she said. I asked for help with a medical procedure. A facelift isn't medical, he said, and threatening my wife is psychotic. Her tone hardened instantly. Don't you dare speak to me like that. I'm your mother. And she's my wife, he replied. You tried to blackmail her. If you choose her over me, she snapped, you'll regret it. My husband's voice went flat. Is that another threat? The line went dead. He stared at his phone. Holy... He stopped himself. My own mother tried to extort you. I'm sorry, I said softly. He shook his head. This isn't on you. We thought that would be the end of it. We were wrong. I thought the confrontation would slow her down. I was wrong. Within hours, the messages started coming. Carefully targeted, emotionally loaded, designed to land exactly where they would hurt the most. To my husband, you're choosing her over your own mother. I hope you can live with that. To me, you've poisoned my son against me. This isn't over. I didn't respond. I documented everything. Screenshots, timestamps, contact logs. If this turned into a pattern, and something in my chest told me it would, I wanted proof, not just memory. My husband blocked her that same night. I didn't. Not because I wanted to engage, because I wanted a record. The next call came from his father. He was always the calm one, the mediator, the man who believed every conflict could be softened if people just gave each other enough space. What's going on? He asked, sounding genuinely confused. Your mother says your wife is refusing to help her with something serious. I explained everything. The demand, the threats, the deadline, the attempt to turn my husband against me. There was a long silence on the other end. She asked you for how much, he finally said. $15,000, I replied, for elective cosmetic surgery. He exhaled slowly. She told me you were being disrespectful. She didn't mention the threats. I figured. Do you have proof? I sent him the screenshots. He called back less than 10 minutes later. I don't even know what to say, he admitted. I'm embarrassed. You didn't do anything wrong. Saying no was the right call. She's used to getting her way. This won't end quietly, I said. No, he agreed. It won't. Then my sister-in-law called. Mom says you're refusing to help her with a medical emergency, she said cautiously. I looked at my husband. He put the phone on speaker. A medical emergency? I repeated. She wants a facelift. There was a pause. Then, wait, what? She demanded $15,000 and threatened to sabotage my marriage if we didn't pay, I said. I can send you the texts. Are you kidding me? I wish. My sister-in-law went quiet. Then, I'm staying way out of this. Smart woman. But the story didn't stop there. Word spread through the family like smoke. Warped, selective, emotionally charged. Some calls were supportive. Others carried judgment disguised as concern. And then came the worst one. His grandmother. You're disrespecting your elder over money, she snapped. You think you're too good for family now? She tried to blackmail me, I said evenly. That's not blackmail, the grandmother scoffed. That's family asking family for help. My husband ended the call. Later that evening, his mother showed up at our house. She rang the doorbell again and again, standing squarely in front of the camera. We watched from the living room as she paced, gestured, raised her voice. I know you're in there, she shouted. This is about money. You're destroying this family. I recorded everything. Before she left, she taped a note to our door. You've made your choice. Don't come crying to me when you need me. You're dead to me until you fix this. When my husband read it, he didn't tear it up. He just said quietly, well, that's clear. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying and grounding all at once. This wasn't about money. This was about control. We didn't get a chance to process any of it before the next wave hit. There was a family wedding coming up, one we'd committed to months earlier. His cousin. Big guest list. Extended relatives we hadn't seen in years. The kind of event where everyone watches everyone else, where tension doesn't stay private. I asked my husband if he wanted to skip it. He shook his head. I'm not hiding. We didn't do anything wrong. So we went. From the moment we arrived, the air felt off. His mother sat on the opposite side of the venue, angled away from us like we were strangers. She didn't acknowledge us once, but I kept catching her in motion, leaning toward different relatives, lowering her voice, gesturing in our direction. Planting seeds. During dinner, one of his aunts approached our table, smile polite but tight. So, she said carefully, there's some family tension. You could say that, my husband replied. Your mother says you're refusing to help her when she needs medical care. It's not medical, I said calmly. It's cosmetic. And she threatened to ruin our marriage if we didn't pay. The aunt's eyebrows shot up. Oh, that's very different from what she said. I imagine it is. The wedding ended without incident, but the fallout didn't wait. Later that night, a group text appeared, one his mother had created, pulling in a wide circle of relatives. Everyone deserves to know what's happening, she wrote. My son and his wife value money over family. They've abandoned me in my time of need. You should all know what kind of people they really are. I felt the familiar urge to defend myself rise, and then settle into something steadier. My husband looked at me. What do you want to do? I picked up my phone. Anyone who wants the actual story, I typed, with screenshots of the threats and blackmail, can DM me. Otherwise, I'm done defending myself against lies. 3 messages came in almost immediately. I sent them everything. 2 people apologized. One admitted they'd jumped to conclusions. Another said, we were wrong, but you can't win everyone. I wasn't trying to. Then my sister-in-law called again, her voice low, like she didn't want to be overheard. You won't believe this, she said. Mom's been asking everyone for money. What do you mean everyone? Literally everyone. Different stories. Told Grandma it was medical. Told Aunt it was for a reunion. Told someone else Dad wouldn't help her. She's playing people. How much has she gotten? Maybe $3,000 total. Nowhere near what she wants. I let out a slow breath. So she's angry. Oh, she's furious, my sister-in-law said. Keeps complaining about how cheap everyone is. That's when the call from my father-in-law came. I need to tell you something, he said, exhaustion heavy in his voice. Your mother-in-law has been taking money from our retirement account. My stomach dropped. How much? About $5,000 over the last few months. Small amounts at first, then bigger. What? My husband whispered. There's more, his father continued. She opened a credit card in both our names without telling me. Charged $2,000 already, all for this surgery. That's financial abuse, I said. I know, he replied quietly. I'm handling it. I just wanted you to hear it from me before she tries blaming you. When the call ended, my husband sat down heavily. She stole from my dad, he said, for a facelift. I reached for his hand. And still, we hadn't hit bottom yet. The call that finally broke me didn't come from family. It came from one of her friends. She introduced herself carefully, like she wasn't sure how this conversation would land. They'd known each other for years. Long lunches, salon appointments, the kind of friendship built on routine rather than honesty. I need to talk to you about your mother-in-law, she said. If this is about the surgery, it's worse. My chest tightened. She's been telling people things about you and your husband, the woman continued. Things that aren't true. What kind of things? I asked, already knowing the answer would hurt. She's saying he's abusive, that you're trapped, that she's trying to protect you. My hands clenched around the phone. That's insane, I said. None of that is true. I know, she replied quickly. That's why I'm calling. She's been showing people a photo of bruises on someone's arm. She says it's you. I felt dizzy. I don't have bruises, I said. I never have. I know. That's why I'm telling you. She either faked it or found someone else's picture, but she's showing it around. Who has she shown? My husband asked quietly beside me. At least 6 people at the salon, probably more. I couldn't breathe. I handed the phone to my husband, my hands shaking too badly to keep holding it. This is her husband, he said evenly. Thank you for telling us. Can you give us the names of the people she showed? The woman agreed. She sounded shaken too, like she hadn't realized how far things had gone until it was already too late. When the call ended, I folded in on myself. This wasn't gossip, this wasn't manipulation, this was character assassination. All over $15,000. I cried in a way I hadn't in years. Deep, gasping, humiliating sobs that came from somewhere raw and unguarded. My husband held me, his hand firm between my shoulder blades, grounding me while my chest heaved. "She's lying about abuse," I choked out. "She's lying about you, about us." "I know," he said, "and we're not letting it stand." That was the moment something shifted. Not into anger, into clarity. "We get ahead of this," I said finally, wiping my face. "We document everything. We tell the truth. We let people see it for themselves." "You mean publicly?" he asked. "I mean transparently," I replied. "No spin, no emotion, just facts, receipts, timelines." He nodded once. "Okay." That night, we sat at the dining table, laptops open, phones spread out between us. We built a timeline from the first text to the fake bruise claim. Every screenshot, every voicemail, every witness, willing to confirm what she'd said. I sent it to my father-in-law first. "Before this spreads further, you need to see everything." He called immediately. "Send this to everyone," he said. "She's gone too far." My hands trembled as I created the group chat. Siblings, grandparents, aunts, uncles, 20 people. One message. "This is what actually happened. Decide for yourselves. I'm done letting my mother lie about my husband." When the responses started coming in, I didn't feel relief. I felt exposed and exhausted. The replies came faster than I expected. Not all of them, but enough. My phone buzzed on the table while I watched, detached, like the outcome of something I'd already survived. "I didn't know it was this bad. She told me a completely different story. I'm so sorry." My sister-in-law messaged first. "Holy hell, I had no idea. I'm on your side." An aunt followed. "Your mother's always been dramatic, but this is beyond anything I imagined." And uncle wrote simply, "We support you." Then the inevitable resistance arrived. His grandmother replied, "This is out of context. You're making your mother look bad." I didn't hesitate. "She made herself look bad," I typed. "I'm just showing the truth." The response that landed hardest came from his cousin. "Your mom asked me for money 3 different times," she wrote. 3 different stories. "Now it makes sense. She's scamming people." That was the moment the narrative cracked. Not because everyone suddenly believed us, but because enough people recognized the pattern. The same guilt, the same urgency, the same shifting explanations depending on who was listening. Within hours, the family dynamic shifted, quietly, subtly, like a tide pulling back. And his mother? Silent. For 3 full days. Then one message came through, addressed only to me. "You've humiliated me. You've made me look like a monster. I'll never forgive you." I read it once, then again. "You did this to yourself," I replied. "All I did was tell the truth." No response after that. Later that evening, my father-in-law called. "I moved the money," he said. "Separate account. My name only." I canceled the credit card she opened. "That won't go over well," my husband said quietly. He sighed. "She's furious with me now, too. But I'm done enabling this." "How are you holding up?" I asked. "Tired," he admitted. 32 years, and I'm just tired." "They're doing counseling," he added. "Her idea. She thinks the therapist will take her side." I didn't say what I was thinking. Apparently, neither did the therapist. According to my father-in-law, she spent 2 sessions insisting she was the victim, that everyone was conspiring against her, that her need to feel beautiful justified everything. The therapist asked one question that ended it, whether her need for validation through appearance and other people's money might point to something deeper. She walked out, refused to go back. But the most important thing had already happened. The power shifted. She no longer controlled the narrative. She no longer controlled access to the truth. And she no longer controlled us. For the first time since this started, I slept through the night. The silence didn't last. It never does with people like her. She found a cheaper clinic, $8,000 instead of $15,000, and paid for it by selling jewelry she'd collected over decades. Pieces she'd once pointed out proudly at family dinners, now framed as sacrifices she was being forced to make. She made sure everyone knew. Photos appeared online, bandages, swelling, dramatic captions about finally putting myself first and doing this for me. My husband scrolled through them quietly beside me, his jaw tight. "She's playing survivor," he said. "Let her," I replied. The comments told a different story. Support, yes, but also questions. "Didn't you have family who could help? I thought your son would support you. Why are you doing this alone?" She didn't answer any of them. My father-in-law started making changes of his own. New checking account, new passwords, therapy, alone. He told my husband he wasn't leaving her, not yet, but he was done financing chaos. She wants to act like this, he said, weary. Fine, without my money. The family split settled into place. Half still spoke to her, cautiously. The other half cut contact entirely. Information filtered back to us anyway. How she complained no one appreciated her sacrifice, how she framed herself as abandoned, how every conversation circled back to what she deserved. Then came the office incident. She showed up at my workplace. Security didn't stop her in time. She somehow made it past the front desk and appeared beside my actual desk, arms crossed, eyes blazing. "We need to talk," she said. My entire team stared. I stood slowly, every nerve buzzing, and guided her toward the lobby before she could say anything else. "You turned my son against me," she snapped once we were out of earshot. "No," I said evenly. "You did that." "I'm his mother," she said. "You're his wife." "You threatened our marriage over cosmetic surgery," I replied. "What did you think would happen?" "I thought you'd show compassion," she said, scoffing. "Understanding." "For blackmail?" I asked. "It wasn't blackmail." I pulled out my phone. "Do you want me to read your messages out loud right here?" Her face flushed red. "You chose money over family," she hissed. "No," I said. "You chose a facelift over your relationship with your son." She looked like she might hit me. Instead, she turned and stormed out. Security called later. She was added to the restricted list. She wouldn't be allowed back. She threw a recovery party after the surgery, invited everyone except us. Most people didn't go. Those who did said it was awkward. Cake untouched, conversations stiff, her looping back again and again to how much she'd sacrificed. People ate politely and left early. My birthday came not long after, the first one without her. I expected it to hurt more than it did. We had a small dinner, my father-in-law, my sister-in-law, a few close friends, people who showed up without conditions. "You know what's weird?" I said that night after everyone left. "I don't miss her." My husband looked at me carefully. "I miss having a normal mother-in-law," I clarified. Not the manipulation, not the drama, just the idea of one. "That's healthy," he said. Maybe it was, or maybe it was survival. The strangest thing about all of it wasn't the chaos. It was what came after. Life didn't snap back into place. There was no dramatic apology, no moment of sudden self-awareness on her part. She didn't realize what she'd lost. If anything, she doubled down, telling anyone who would listen that she'd been betrayed, abandoned, disrespected. She told people she'd disowned her son for being ungrateful. When my sister-in-law relayed that to us, my husband didn't react the way I expected. No anger, no hurt, just a tired exhale. "Well," he said, "that saves us the trouble." The surgery results weren't what she'd hoped for. $8,000 bought subtle changes, too subtle for her liking. According to my father-in-law, she was already talking about revision surgery. Another $6,000. Another justification. Another crisis she expected someone else to fund. "I told her she's on her own," he said quietly. I meant it. He wasn't leaving her, not yet, but something fundamental had shifted. He no longer explained her behavior away. He no longer smoothed things over. He protected himself. Watching that gave me perspective. Entitlement doesn't disappear when it's confronted. It just looks for new angles. But without access, without money, without silence, without secrecy, it loses its power. Our marriage changed too, not in the way I feared. We talked more, checked in more, stopped assuming things would just work out. There's something clarifying about surviving an external threat together, about realizing someone tried to dismantle your life and failed. "She wanted to turn us against each other," my husband said one night. "Instead, she turned everyone against herself." He was right. She led with threats instead of conversation, with entitlement instead of accountability, with appearance over relationships, and in doing so, she revealed exactly who she was to everyone who mattered. I spent years believing keeping the peace was the same as being kind. It isn't. Sometimes peace is just silence paid for with your boundaries. This time we didn't pay. She got her new face. We got our lives back. And I would make that trade every single time.